Hey, how's it going, everybody? Another thing for us to discuss, and I'm curious on your guys' thoughts, wanting your feedback as always. Let me know, comments down below, like, subscribe, you know how that stuff goes. But this one has to do with the European tiebreakers and I guess tiebreakers in general. The EU regional manager person ended up putting out the messages regarding what the tiebreakers are for 3 teams trying to make it into the fall invitational for Europe. Those 3 teams are Team Heat, Team Go, and Williams Resolve. Those 3 teams are all trying to compete for the final 2 spots, 15th and 16th overall, so they can play in the Invitational for a chance to go to the major, play upset, all that kind of stuff. The way this was done was also the exact same, if you guys remember me talking about Flashes of Brilliance, Soul, and what was the other team? And 26 Rising. Exact same situation. It's a best of 7 bracket. The teams with the best overall records get a first round bye. If they lose, they can then drop to the lower bracket. But winning you're in is basically what you're doing. The winner of Heat versus Team Go in the bracket ends up progressing forward to claim the spots. And the loser then drops down to play Williams Resolve. They also play best 7 to get into the spot. The difficulty is all 3 of these teams have the exact same amount of overall RLCS points. They're all in a 3-way tie. The way that the tiebreaker is, and this has been done over the course of the last season as well, we just didn't see it as much because there was very rare circumstances where 3 teams were fighting for 2 spots. But the tiebreaker is based upon most recent seeding. It's the exact same seeding you guys see me use as the 3rd overall seeds when I do the teams and the spots that they get. It's 3 most recent events. It is then overall RLCS points, and then it is the most recent event, including majors as well as qualifiers and all that kind of stuff. The tiebreaker as it stands right now is Heat is number 1 overall, as they went 1-3 in Swiss with a -3 game differential. Then Team Go that went 1-3 as well with a -7 game differential. And then Williams Resolve did not qualify for the Fall Cup at all, so they are 3rd. They encourage and obviously permit all the teams to stream, and by the time this video comes out, the results have happened. But I'm not worried about the results and who qualifies. I'm more so worried about the conversation that was surrounding it. And Williams Resolve had their manager, Tadpole, long-term veteran in the space, has been around for like 6-7 years, had a video that ended up coming out, and he expresses his frustrations about this altogether. Take a look at some of it.
So if you're watching the podcast, what I've spoken about in regards to the tiebreaker is correct. The tiebreaker we've been given has us in a lower bracket, and then the 2 other teams, Heat and Team Go, in an upper bracket, despite all 3 teams having the exact same points in the rankings. I've been in the Rocket League scene 7 years now, almost 7 years, and it's quite frankly the most stupid thing I have ever seen in my entire life. I don't see any version of this that ends up making sense with us being in a lower bracket compared to the other 2 teams. I don't get why they've had 2 chances at the bracket. I don't know why we have to play the loser of a match. It makes absolutely 0 sense in my head. So the reason behind it is because we've picked up our points in the first regional as opposed to the second, which I don't see any reason you'll ever need recency bias in esports. I don't see the point in having something that happened a week ago being worth less than happened today.
So I look at the circumstance and I have my own thoughts about it, but a lot of it is the difficulty of how this is done, and it presents a bigger question to Psyonix. What tiebreaker is the right tiebreaker? How do we do appropriate seeding? All that kind of stuff. These have been common conversations forever, and I think the biggest reason why they are doing this, whether it is a good argument or not, whatever side of the coin you're on, is trying to create a conversation or create discussions surrounding what is the optimal way to do that. It's a trial and error process, and by bringing it up and talking about it is the best way to go about it. I personally usually lead to game differential and head-to-head and stuff of that nature, where if you have teams that are playing each other and despite over long-term success or failures, they're all in the same spot, well, then we compare them based upon the results over all those events. And if that still doesn't work, then we compare them. Okay, it's between you 2 and a tiebreaker. Who performed better when you guys played? And you keep going down the list. Some use goal differential as well, because scoring goals is how you win games. So how many goals did you score? There's a bunch of different scenarios that you can do, and there's a big hierarchy if they end up falling apart. But these things have been done over the last year plus. It is nothing new. It happened last season, happened this season. It's been a consistent thing. And ironically enough, notoriously, the teams that are on the poor receiving end of it are always the ones to speak the most vocally about it. You didn't see anything from the other teams in North America, but during format issues, you saw Shock speak up for Ghost Gaming and had this big thread about how this seeding issue was a thing, and we discussed it and talked about it, and hopefully it gets better. The difficulty with this one is no matter what tiebreak you really look at, Williams Resolve is not in a beneficial light on any of these. It's mostly the tiebreaker itself that a lot of people are frustrated by, that why are we using recency bias in a tiebreaker when the other matches were played 2 weeks ago? And it's difficult because no matter which tiebreak you really break it down as, it doesn't really go in favor. Drekt statistician, you guys hear me talk about Drekt a lot on this channel because he is gigabrain when it comes to all this stuff. Talks about some of the alternatives. The first one he talks about are the tiebreakers. If we were to do game differential, which you could go to, you would still see Williams Resolve tied for last. Both them and Team Go have a -7 differential in their games, which means then yet another tiebreaker has to be decided. Which tiebreaker do you go from there? Which one down the hierarchy list do you pick? Doesn't provide a solution. You then also do it in strength of schedule, something I'm also really keen on. If you are going against who played more difficult opponents and you performed better against those more difficult opponents, you should be rewarded. They're also third in that. Team Go is 11-7 opponent record at 61.11% winning chance. Heat, which is 47.37%, and then Williams Resolve, 42.11%, where their teams are 8-11. So if you do that, it's the exact same if you also go by game record, where Team Go, who play teams, finished 2nd, 5th through 8th, 1st, and 9th through 11th. Heat is like 1st, and then a bunch of others. And then Williams Resolve, where the best performing team is top 8. Everybody else is worse than that. So you're seeing both Team Go and Team Heat had to play against teams that eventually go on to be the best, while Resolve is fighting middle of the pack teams overall in their Swiss results. Some people then also suggested a different format altogether in the tiebreaker. The tiebreaker right now is a first round bye. Those teams, if they lose, they get an extra life, go through a double elimination, and fight. And the team in the third spot doesn't have any extra lives. They then offered, well, what if we did round robin, where each team plays each team? Which the difficulty of doing that is then the same exact situation could occur, where when you're running into the teams playing each other, there is a chance that one team that has done well could purposely have a match that does not matter and throw their matches, which then creates, again, another tiebreaker at the end of it. So the difficulty is we're just basically going in circles and there's no real optimal solution. And the biggest issue I notice is trying to identify which tiebreakers you should go by, what is the most fair, and I don't think there's ever going to be an optimal answer for that. It's difficult because no matter which way you look at seeding, even though Swiss tries to pair people based upon the best opponent, based upon game differential, like if you're a team that loses matches, and I guess this is what it ultimately comes down to, Williams Resolve had multiple chances to put themselves further ahead in the bracket and failed to do so multiple times. And because over multiple different events and over multiple qualifiers, one they didn't even qualify for in the first place, which to me is the end all to be all. If your points are tied, you performed better earlier versus later, and the most recent thing you didn't even make it into, which do you weight more favorably? Doing it earlier or doing it later? Psyonix has decided to do it most recent. The team that is performing better right now, or most recently, is going to be rewarded, even though the results in the end are the same. And I don't know if there is a perfect answer for that. I don't know if there will ever be a perfect answer for it, but Psyonix is sticking to the rules that they had set over a year ago. And that's where the discourse is kind of coming into play. So the difficulty is you try to look at different formats, you try to look at different tiebreakers, you try to find optimal solutions, and there is never going to be, someone is always going to be on the negative receiving end when you have 3 teams fighting for 2 spots, because one team has to have a disadvantage or one of the teams has to have an advantage. In this case, the best performing team is getting an advantage and you have to give them a matchup. The other opportunity is you have them have a first round bye and they just immediately go in and the other 2 just play an individual game, but that also feels kind of weird if everybody is tied. So we just, again, keep going in circles, and yes, it's unfortunate for Williams Resolve, and the other teams are given kind of 1 life in a 3-way tiebreaker, but there's not really any really good way to go about it where it is perfect. So overall, I'm curious on what you guys think. I do also like the concept of Swiss doing strength of schedule instead, where if you are the better performing team and you have the high seed, then you are also playing the optimal matchup where the high seed always plays the low seed based upon like overall results rather than that individual tournament's like game differential. But again, bushholes is a thing I talked to Drekt a lot about, which I found pretty interesting, but you can compare it to how it's done in Counter-Strike, and he's also shown like different bracket breakdowns and what Swiss would look like if teams are playing strength of schedule versus just game differential and all that other kind of crazy stuff. If that's something you guys are interested, let me know in the comments down below. Stop by the stream, twitch.tv/Lawler. We talk about this stuff in detail when it's not for a video, just because then it's open conversation. We just kind of discuss it with each other, but we'd love to see you guys there. But again, interesting stuff, and curious on what you guys think. Are you on the side of Williams Resolve and think it's unfair? Are you on the other side? Let me know what you got. Comments down below, and while you're down there, if you enjoy the content, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Any questions, comments, concerns down below, and links to everything I'm talking about in the description as well. That's going to do it for today's video. Hope you guys are enjoying the European matches this weekend. Or that's not right. We're watching North America. My brain is talking about Europe. North America is going on this weekend for regionals. It's, again, there's a lot of Rocket League. There was not a long enough break. That's a conversation for itself. We'll see you in the next one.